The news, unfortunately, is that I'm not quitting social media, even though social media has put me through the absolute ringer this week. On Saturday night, you could find me curled up in bed, crying hard over an app. Crying over an app. Because that was the night when TikTok went dark at about 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. And suddenly I was like, I've lost my connection to the world. I am now existing outside of any discernible society. I'm isolated. How will I get my information? How will I get my memes? It was a pretty bad experience. But even so, I don't have any desire to quit social media. I mean, I am quite literally posting to social media right now. Right now. And there's no way I'm going to give up the hundreds upon hundreds of hours that I have spent creating content for these stupid platforms over the past year. No, I can't give it up. I'm not quitting. But my whole emotional reaction to the whole TikTok debacle, even now that it's supposedly back, all of these experiences and all of this emotional turmoil has led me actually to want to take some action. Surprisingly, I mean, usually when I have emotional turmoil, I just want to stew and fester in it. But this time I'm like, could do something. And so short of quitting social media, though, I feel like I just want to maybe divest a little bit from the platforms and maybe make a move towards something that feels a little more grounded, a little more concrete, a little more physical, or if not physical, I'm going to talk a little bit about the wonders of physical media here. I'm also going to talk about the wonders of just non-algorithmic digital media. I don't really need to get my entertainment almost exclusively from social media platforms, because by this point, by my woefully advanced age of 35, I've seen quite a few social media apps come and go. I was there when Facebook was fun. Believe it or not, there was a time when Facebook actually was a primary source of my entertainment. You'd spend all your time stalking your crush, and you'd curate your list of weird pages to It was a good time. I was also there when Instagram was fun, when it was just a photo sharing app and wasn't trying to sell you something at every turn. I was there when Twitter was fun, but then of course they all fell. And then it was TikTok. TikTok was the last one standing. It was the final holdout in all of this. And TikTok, up until recently, was the last place I could go in my apps where I could have fun, where I could be guaranteed a pretty good time, probably, where I would find something amusing. I would laugh. I would maybe have my mind expanded. I would learn about stuff in the world. I would feel connected to other people, even though I understand it wasn't a real connection, but it sometimes felt real. I have to admit that I appreciated those people I was seeing day to day on my TikTok feed. I felt that I knew them. I felt that I liked them. I was they're part of my life somehow. And that was the way it was. But yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot come and go. And on the topic of moving towards more non-algorithmic media, at least, I also have lived many lives just in terms of the types of media that people predominantly consumed around me. I was born into, honestly, a physical media world. When I was a kid, people listened to music on CDs. They read books, magazines, physical print magazines were delivered to your house and you could read them, and it was so wonderful. I loved magazines. Oh my God. The whole trope of the young woman magazine editor in the big city living this glamorous life.
I am Jenna Rink, big time magazine editor.
Oh, I bought that hook, line, and sinker. I loved it so much. I miss those days, and that's part of my desire to go back to print media. I didn't really super experience it. I was a little too young to be fully in the physical media consumption landscape. I mean, all I really had was reading those magazines and listening on repeat for probably thousands of hours to my dad's CD of Abbey Road. But then by the time I was a young teenager, the world had very much moved towards a more digital media consumption consumption landscape. And so this was the time when I, for example, aged 15, saved up my allowance to buy my first iPod. Like, it was one of those blue iPod minis. It was really cute. Like, I kind of like really miss it. Like, just the aesthetics of that. Like, it was so much more fun. Like, I feel like technology was just so much more fun in those days. It was like colorful and cute, and that persisted for a while. In fact, to make this point, I think I might just focus for a little while on the music listening side of things, because I do think this is like actually a really illustrative example of what I have experienced, what I'm currently experiencing, and what I want to move on to. So, continuing our tour, I then continued like the iPod life through college. You know, I had a different iPod by the time I was in college. Like, I think it was an iPod Touch. But like primarily, like, I would get my music by getting MP3s. I would acquire lots of MP3s in various ways. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I don't want to like implicate myself in any trouble, any hot water. But yeah, I acquired a lot of MP3s through a combination of ethical and non-ethical means, unfortunately. But it was a good experience. I had this vast music library. I loved going on my iTunes and even just like scrolling through all the songs I'd collected and being like, what fun, what fun. And then when I was in my early 20s, I made my Spotify account. And now this felt like a big watershed moment, I have to say. Like, I downloaded Spotify and suddenly I was like, whoa, like there's a whole world of music right here at my fingertips. Like, no longer do I have to scour the internet for MP3 files. No, like I can just like log on to Spotify and everything's already there. All I need to know is what I want to search for. Like, it was so amazing, that initial like view into Spotify. And like Spotify and I had a good relationship for several years. Like, for the longest time, I thought that I would never need anything else. However, though, recently, I really have not been feeling that the Spotify experience is quite living up to what I once experienced and what I desire. And it's also not living up to what I experienced when I consumed media via other simpler forms lately. And by the way, I'm not the first person to talk about this. Like, Spotify's been critiqued in the media lately for a few reasons. I mean, partially because it's like interface, the way like you see it on your phone or whatever, it kind of limits like your access to your music library. It limits the accessibility of the songs you might want to listen to and the songs that you've collected. And also it kind of has this tendency to suggest all the same stuff over and over and over. So if you've like finished a playlist and it turns over to the radio function, yeah, like usually for me, it's like either I will get Chappell Roan or Sabrina Carpenter, both of whom I like. I like them, but the thing is, I already know about them. And if I wanted to listen to them, I would just go and listen to them. I mean, the whole point of me switching over to like just, you know, the playlist radio function is that I want to hear something novel, at least something maybe that I'm not completely expecting. Also something that fits with the vibe of the playlist. Like, that's the other thing. I mean, most of my playlists tend a bit towards like the depressing, you know, turmoil. Did I mention I love to be in turmoil? Well, yeah. Most of my playlists tend a little bit towards the depressing, and, you know, Chappell Roan, Sabrina Carpenter don't really cater to the sad so much. So it's like, it's often like a little bit of a jump, an emotional jump I have to make from being like in my feelings to being like hot to go. And yeah, whatever. Yeah. So I just, you know, and also the other criticism of Spotify is the way the app works, where when you open your homepage, you have the most recent 6 items that you've listened to. And, you know, just psychologically, I would say you are much more inclined to just click on one of those and then you listen to like the same stuff over and over again. And so like, I've just been listening to like my 2024 general playlist, like most of the past several months, because I don't have the energy to go and, you know, search for something else, and Spotify is just making it so easy to not go and search for something else, to not be surprised, to not be curious. And you know what, though? I want to be curious again. I want to feel inspired. And currently, the algorithmic landscape does not provide me with the means to do so. For this reason, I want to revisit my MP3 experience. Because when I was collecting all these MP3 files, I had them collected in my iTunes, and I would just have this list of honestly, thousands of songs, and I could scan through it. I could sort it by artist or by album. Then in terms of finding new music, I would often find new music by doing this revolutionary thing of reading music blogs. Wow, I actually did that research. It was crazy. Or I would listen to people talking about music in my day-to-day life. And if a friend mentioned, oh, I like this, I'd go and get the album and see what I thought about it. And so it was just it was a little more effort, but I think the rewards in many ways were greater, and I found that I enjoyed music listening a lot more, and I listened to a lot more music than I do these days. So I just have this huge desire to resurrect that old library, that old music library. But I think also I want to expand this energy into so many other areas of my life, so I'm also talking about books here. And I want to keep using the local library, which I already do quite a bit, but I want to just keep that going. Also, though, I want to explore the other things that libraries have to offer. I have heard that libraries will have DVDs and stuff. They'll even have CDs, to be able to check a CD out of the library. Wow, I've never done that before. That sounds interesting. And then I could add that to my music library. What? I want to be surprised. And also, I want to pay better attention to things. I want to be more present in the media I'm consuming and less just brought along by the algorithm into whatever the algorithm tells me I must like. I want to do it differently in the future. And so these are just my thoughts and my promises to myself. But perhaps you're wondering, and perhaps I was wondering too, why does this matter? And why am I feeling so passionately motivated to make the switch to different forms of media consumption, to removing myself from the algorithms? I mean, apart from the emotional pain that algorithms have been causing me, why am I feeling the desire to move away from them? Well, I think what I saw this week and what I have really worried for quite some time is about the ease with which these platforms, where we store so much of our lives, our tastes, our interests, I've seen now the ease with which one of those platforms can just dissolve. The way that it's there 1 minute and then the next it's not. And everything you had on there and every ounce of yourself that you invested in this online platform, it's just gone. Sorry. It wasn't profitable enough, perhaps. I mean, that could happen. Sometimes I think, okay, what if Spotify went down? Spotify already, seems to be in somewhat rough waters, given that they laid off 1,500 members of staff in December 2023. And that's part of the reason people are speculating that their algorithm just is not any good anymore. Well, if they're laying so many people off, I'm like, oh no, is the business in trouble? And then am I going to lose all of the music I have spent years and years and years saving on there? Am I going to lose that? And, it's honestly, it could happen. And so I also just want to, for my own protection and edification, to have a little bit of stuff saved, just in, if not physical, at least saved on my computer, permanently, or as permanently as a computer can be. Is a computer forever? It certainly feels like it. But also, I just think about the extent to which, my music listening, my search for entertainment could be tracked, could be observed, monitored by who knows who. And I mean, most, I guess, innocently, even though it doesn't honestly seem that innocent, would be that it's then used to advertise to me, to sell me stuff, to make me spend more money. Like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to be putting so much of myself onto these digital platforms, for them to know so much of my tastes, of my preferences. Do I want some, I don't know, a government spy knowing when I'm in emotional turmoil? No, I don't. I mean, do I think that actually happens? I mean, probably not. But, sometimes I do just get caught up in this conspiracy thinking, and then sometimes it starts to make sense, and sometimes I get a little bit like, oh, well, do I want that? Do I want that level of surveillance? Probably not. Speaking of books, also on this topic of surveillance, one of my intended rereads for this year is The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by, I believe it was Shoshana Zuboff. I read that a few years ago and I remember it being very informative, but I think it might be even more informative now. So I do want to reread that one. Anyway, that was a digression. I don't necessarily want to be tracked in that way. It is a question of attention and attention span as well, and how I think that the algorithmic model of music consumption, of film consumption, of TV consumption, of reading, whatever, like all of these algorithmic models, I think that, they don't really necessarily prioritize engaging kind of deeply with a piece of media. And I feel like obviously like media is most pleasurable when you do engage deeply with it, when you do give it your full attention. So I do want to give it my full attention a little bit more. Like, I don't always want to be, especially with like music and stuff, like just searching always for the next dopamine hit. Like, I do want to get back to like maybe listening to a full album, discovering that, oh wow, like I don't just like one song off of this album, I actually like several songs. We'll see how it goes. I'll probably listen to a few albums at least in the coming months and may or may not report back. Yeah, so it's about surveillance, it's about attention, and then also it's just about owning stuff. So, okay, like I am not a minimalist by any means. I don't resonate with the minimalist lifestyle at all. I am very much a maximalist. I like a bit of like opulence, excess in my, say, design preferences. Like my ideal room is like, it's a little bit cluttered. Like it's got a lot of stuff, but every piece of that stuff has meaning, you know what I mean? And I think that with this like algorithmic digital media, like everything becomes just so portable. It becomes so portable, but also so ephemeral. It could disappear at any time. And it doesn't, though, invite exploration. Where it's like, if you have, say, a library of records, it's so fun, honestly. Like, I don't even have a library of records, but I have dug through piles of records before, and it's actually so fun to like look at them and look at the artwork, and then to put one on to engage in that physical experience. Like it's actually like it's really rewarding. And so I think that like to have your collections of stuff surrounding you physically, it does just make life feel a bit richer. It makes life feel a bit more meaningful, more fun. I personally love to see a room with like walls of bookshelves and, people's like record collection on display. Like I love that. It's what I want. It's what I like aspire to. But I've of course lived this like transient life where I've been like moving around so much and I haven't been able to like collect that much physical media. And I suppose like we just don't have our like home bases in the same way that past generations kind of did. Like we don't have the space or the permanence of location necessarily to collect things and to collect things that mean something to us. And so I want to spend more time creating that. I want to step away from the digital obsession a little bit more. I'm not going to give it up entirely. Like I'm not even going to like delete my Spotify account yet. I also just want to relax. And I think this will help me calm down. And maybe I will never cry over an app ever again.